listening to the Talkin Dads podcast, brought to you by You Suggested. Visit our social media sites, twitter.com/Talkin Dads, @mention us @Talkin Dads, facebook.com/Talkin Dads, instagram.com/Talkin Dads. If you'd like to support us, please visit our Patreon page, www.patreon.com/Talkin Dads. That's TALKINDADS.
The salmonella lettuce is more likely to kill you lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've been eating iceberg lettuce and not the healthier versions of lettuce that'll kill you.
It's an iceberg. You might as well drink a glass of water.
Well, it's important. If you're putting blue cheese and bacon on something, then iceberg is the way to go.
Whoa.
It doesn't make any sense to put blue cheese and bacon on, like, I don't know. Well, you could do it on arugula. That actually works.
It's a vegetable.
It is a vegetable.
Vegetable. I like the way that was said.
You know where that's from?
What is it from? I don't.
Do you know, Lou? Did you get it? Oh, Lou,
you
might be my favorite person now.
This is my blue heaven.
Very good, sir. Well done.
Oh, with Steve Martin and Rick Moranis?
Absolutely.
Wow.
See, Earl, you actually understand the references that we did last week that went over Mike's head too. So
Yes. I'm a movie nut, and My Blue Heaven is one of my 10 work movies that I put on just to listen to.
That's
freaking funny.
I haven't watched. I think I saw that once when I was young. That's when Steve Martin's like a mafia or he's in the
Rick
mafia.
Moranis is the FBI guy.
Yeah,
God.
That's right.
I was definitely probably under 10.
His wife? Nobody. His love interest is Joan Cusack.
That's who it was. Okay.
Joan Cusack.
Which is a funny pair. Those two.
With those shoes.
It actually, it's a very interesting story with Rick Moranis. He quit show business to raise his kids.
Right. Because his wife passed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She had a cancer that accelerated quickly.
It was unfortunate.
So he's actually, I think, getting back into show business now. But
I've heard that rumor. Yeah, I heard he's trying to get back in.
He has a guest star scheduled on Bloomberg's. Was that the name of the show?
The Goldbergs.
The Goldbergs, where he's going to play Darth Helmet, his character from Spaceballs.
Awesome!
Awesome! I gotta see that.
Have you watched the Goldbergs, Earl?
I have not.
It's like all '80s references. It's pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's actually a pretty funny show. Happy Memorial Day weekend, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Talkin Dads podcast. This is episode 3. I'm Mike. Oh, fuck off, you guys. Come on.
This is Earl.
Happy Memorial Day weekend, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Talkin Dads podcast. This is episode 3. I'm Mike.
This is Earl.
Hey everyone, happy Memorial Day weekend. This is John here.
And Lou Corso, how's it going?
Hey, Lou. So last week we left off. We were talking about the baby registries, and we were talking about the best things to kind of put in there. And what I had asked of everybody is if they could put together their top 10 lists of what you should add on the registry, right? Not necessarily specific to what you need immediately, but what you feel like are good things to throw on there. And John challenged me to come up with mine, so I'm going to go first. I'm just going to run through my list, and then we'll go to John, then we'll go to Lou, and then we'll go to Earl. All right? So 1, I have bibs. 2, baby wipes and diapers. 3, teething toys and soothers. There's those little things that you put fruit in. Baby wipe. Yeah, mouth stuff. 4, children's Tylenol and medicines and whatnot. 5, car seat. 6, baby bottles. 7, bath kits. 8, I have first aid kits for babies, the things that have like the nose sucker and all that. Those bulbs. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. You probably do. Number 9, a
Yeah,
stroller.
I forgot the name for it.
It's like the nose bulb. I'm going to call it that.
Yeah, it escapes me.
9, I have a stroller, and 10, I have a crib.
Hey man, I think that's a pretty good list. I think it seems more like you're thinking more like topics or groups of things to get, which is good. And I think you hit almost all the ones I had too, actually.
Yeah, the only one that I would actually expand on that you didn't touch on is baby monitor. A good baby monitor.
So for a baby monitor for us, I actually went a different route.
You hired a good fella?
I sure did.
To just stand in your house?
I sure did.
Paulie Walnuts is sitting beside him.
So he's like, hey, Mikey, what do you want me to do with the baby? Just don't touch it, just watch it and relay my messages.
I agree, Earl, 100%. I think the baby monitor, a halfway decent one that you do a little bit of homework on reviews, if you're not going to go some other route like Mike did, I would highly recommend it. You don't want one crapping out or even worse, picking up anybody else's signal that might be living next to you. That just gets pretty creepy. Yep. You turn on your baby monitor and also you get a view of someone else's baby or worse. You don't want to know.
Well, that's why I went the route that I did. I got these. This is Zomoto is the brand. They're just home security cameras, but they also have 2-way audio. So I got a kit of those. So I could put them in the rest of the house too, but I can also have that basically as the baby monitor, where you have the live audio feed too. And I thought it might be a little bit more secure than some random creep watching my baby coming through those baby monitors. I don't know if you guys have heard those stories, but no thanks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, thank you. Does question though? I'm not sure. Maybe I just missed this, but does that cover? You said it's a 2A monitor, right? Does that do like a temperature or anything like that?
No, I know the baby monitors do that too, but it doesn't do temperature. It just has the room. If there's motion, we get an alert. Obviously, the noise will come through too.
Yeah, temperature. You can get one of those cheapo temperature monitors if it really worries you. If you live in a place where temperature can vary pretty significantly, but yeah, I mean that's the only added benefit I think of going with maybe like a prepackaged baby monitor is that it comes with a little bit more things kind of pointed towards that kind of what you're monitoring.
That's a good point. I actually didn't even think about that. If it's something I need to consider. All right.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's easy add-on. You can pick something up that you can have a remote against with on Amazon or something.
Sure.
I'm sure.
Cool. Do you want to run through your list, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think, let's see here. I wrote mine down. Honestly, I think you got, and I was thinking of mine within like the first 2 or 3 months too. So a lot of the same kind of topics that you hit, I got. But to kick things off, one, burp cloths. And I want to emphasize just trying to get register for just generic ones and as many as you can. You're going to find, I think, that you may run through a whole ton of them. And the more... the ones that try to be more robust or more absorbent or more, I guess, friendly for burps or any spillage tend to be more of a pain. And especially ones that may be like more of a brand name or designer. We I think we went with like Gerber. Actually, ours were, we went in with for the, I think they were actually cloth diapers and they're like packs of 5 you get for like $5 and you just get a whole bunch of them and they work great. You don't worry about them. They're easy to clean and they're just super simple. So I'd recommend those. Next up, this more geared towards the mother, but you want to, and this actually helps you too, but I think you want to invest or look into things or pillows or something that can help when she's breastfeeding, or even if you are, depending whoever's doing the feeding, you want to invest in something that might be comfortable for you because you're going to be holding this baby, even though it's pretty light and we're all grown men, but you're going to hold this thing for 20 minutes or plus feeding it. And, especially if it's in the middle of the night, you want to get something that can help you not exert so much energy or keep you awake more than you need to be. One of the ones that we tried, I think it was called My Breast Friend. And Lauren seemed to really like it too. It kind of buckles behind you so it doesn't slip or anything. And it makes it really kind of easy to keep them in place or her in place while you're feeding them. So invest or look at reviews for those, I would suggest. Third up, kind of similar to the burp cloths, anything that's swaddling clothes. Keep it simple would be the recommendation. I think last week or last episode we talked about, I think Mikey brought it up about having one that had like a Velcro.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Lou was against it. And Lou, I'd like to get your thoughts on that after John finishes up his list, but yeah, go ahead, John.
Or now. I mean, let's you can. It's an open discussion. The reason why I would recommend not getting one is because they're so delicate sometimes when they're trying to sleep that anything that's loud or can jolt them might totally wake them up or just disturb them enough that it might ruin their nap or whatever. Two possible ones that we tried that seemed to work was just going classic old school, which is doing the wraparound kind of with a blanket or something or a swaddling cloth. And there's other ones that I forget what they're called. I think it's called Peapod, maybe the name. But it's a zipper. It's like a soft zipper that's super quiet and easy to do. So you're kind of like putting your baby in like a sack and then you just zip them up and it kind of performs the same job. But yeah, I don't know if you had a different reason why you'd recommend not having Velcro on there.
I'm just trying to figure out if you're actually serious about Mike breastfeeding or not. So that's what the first question I had. You laugh because you said if your wife's gonna feed or if you're gonna feed. So.
Oh. You meant if I'm going to breastfeed the child. Yeah.
Yeah, if he's going to breastfeed the child.
Only for flossing
I got you.
needs.
I know. I think that's a whole different podcast topic.
Oh, so you're talking about the swaddles? What you were talking about?
The Velcro one. I brought up a Velcro one last week. You said you were against it.
There's a couple of good brands that are actually out there. One of them is called Aiden and Ace. I remember dealing with them years ago, and we actually bought a bunch of them because they're actually very soft. But the one thing you'll learn, like right when you get into the hospital, is how to swaddle. That's like 101. So because they feel so comfortable in that particular when they're wrapped, and you want to keep their hands kind of down because you don't want them to kind of scratch their face too, and you'll learn all about that. But that's I'll get those kind of soft swaddles. That's definitely on the list, and I think you guys pretty much covered all the things that I would suggest you basically have on the list. But I think it's called a buppy or something like that, John. You're thinking of the pillow kind of wraps around.
Mm-hmm.
That you can,
I think so.
Oh, it looks like one of those airplane neck pillows. Is that?
Yeah,
kind of just bigger.
Right. That thing is just like ridiculous. I don't think you guys mentioned a bathtub, small bathtub.
No, I did. I did.
You did?
That was on my list as well.
And also, like when you're dealing with lotions, you don't put any lotions on the kid for some time. I think we talked about that earlier. But once you do start to bathe them and stuff like that, we went for things like very organic or some things that are just very, very soft on the skin and stuff like that. And you just the one thing that we went through was just the bathtub thing, and that was a fun. That's a whole episode in and of itself. But I think you guys covered a lot of it. So
let's see here. I know. Oh yeah. So soft blankets. I think Lou, you touched on that. Either if it's for the swaddling or if it's just a blanket in general. I think I think I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, but muslin or muslin, I think, is a type of blanket. Muslin. There you go. There you go. They're super awesome and versatile too because you can use them as a blanket or swaddle.
Well, I'm sorry. What is that? Muslin?
It's a type of a cloth.
Oh, okay.
It's a type of cloth.
It's super soft, super light, breathable.
Nice.
But I think
I
think the cloth. I don't think muslin is what we're going for here, and I'm going to do a little research while you guys are talking about that. So.
Well, I guess.
Oh no, you're right.
Trail. So whatever blanket it fits in that. Is that
soft cotton muslin swaddles? Yes. Sir.
There you go. There you go.
Right up.
All right. So cool. All right. So recommend those baby hand mittens so they don't scratch themselves. There's definitely going to be some blood when their baby scratches their face. So I'd recommend getting mittens. Let's see what else we got here. I think.
Hey, John, just stop for 1 sec. It sounds like you're cutting in and out.
Okay.
Is everybody else hearing that too, or is that just mine?
Yeah, it was Skype. Skype cut him out for a second.
Okay.
Sorry. All right. It's probably my internet, maybe.
No problem.
But what did you guys hear? The stroller comment?
I heard blood, and then you laughed, and then I didn't hear the next part.
Mittens for their hands. Or something to cover their fingernails so they don't scratch and cut themselves on their face or wherever, because they will do that.
Yeah, you're going to spend a strange amount of your time trying, and that's true for the next several years, Mike. trying to prevent your baby from harming themselves.
And if they do daycare or something, other kids as well. Yeah, declaw them.
Okay.
See what else you got. Back to the stroller. You mentioned stroller, Mike. I would recommend going for a good enough, but not too expensive, like Transformer stroller, where it's like a 3-in-1, where you could do a bassinet, car seat, and like a toddler seat, so you can have it grow with the kid and not carry around 3 different strollers in your house.
Yep.
Let's see. Next up, a sound machine, if that is something that floats your boat. But I find it is helpful. It gives them something to do and engages them. Helps them. We think it helped our kids sleep. Whether it's like not in the crib necessarily, but maybe at least in a play mat or play area, give them something that they can interact with, at least mentally, to get them, fall asleep or help them just kind of grow.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else we got here. You got some waterproofing. Those pee pads, I think are super helpful. I would invest in a bunch of those. You can line your crib with them, or bassinet, or your. And when you'll find that you'll have a lot of accidents and spills, and you'll be able to see that you can easily, I think, more quickly clean things up when you have those in place. And let's see here. I would go in for another one, some generic type onesies for your kid if you're going to clothe them. I find that the more expensive that you get, or the more kind of designer centric brands that you get, they're just harder to work with. So just get super simple, like Gerber style or whatever onesies that are just like white or a simple color. They're going to get completely destroyed anyway, so you might as well get ones that are easy to use and slip off of them. We talked about the bath. Some kind of like I think one of the ones that we did was the Pooge, if I'm saying it correctly. It was called the Pooge, the Puj. It's this thing that's like folded. Well, I think they have a couple different models, but the one we have is like this foldable one. It's kind of like a foam mat that you can form into like almost like a cone type shape that you can put in your bathtub. So, that allows them to like.
I missed that. The one that you have. You said the one that you have kind of cut out. Could you
that we have is the Pooge. The Puj. It's spelled Puj. I think it's Pooge. It's like a foam mat that you can put in your tub, and you can just kind of have your kid cradle in there, water and just your normal bathtub.
I feel like Pooge is something someone called me once as a fat kid in middle school.
I was thinking the same thing
afterwards.
Yeah, no. Actually, my bullying in school was where I developed my wit. But yeah, I'm pretty sure like Pooge was on that list.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Now it means bathtub. Good for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think just a general comment. I think the names that they come up with for baby products are ridiculous. Like Similac. Does that sound good to anybody?
It sounds like a pit on Tatooine where you're going to throw down Boba.
Yeah.
No, it's come on. Let's be serious. It's Romulan.
It's very. It does. It sounds very. It sounds very sci-fi. Simulated lactate. Simulac.
Or it's Spock's brother.
What was that, Lou?
Spock's brother.
Oh, Simulac.
It's Spock's younger, underdeveloped brother who never quite grew a good needs.
The needs of the Simulac outweigh the needs of the few.
No, that's not the way it is. But it's Sybok and Simulac. Those are the two guys.
What about the Snot Sucker? That's actually the name of one of the products. That's disgusting.
It's actually like extremely important.
And I want to talk about that one a little bit later, but we'll come back.
A couple things left on my list here. You want to think about air conditioning and not just like keeping cold, but you want to make sure, I kind of touched on this before, but you want to make sure that you get things that help the climate or the environment in your baby's room, or wherever they are, stay consistent and at the normal levels that this should be. So if you live in a dry place, you want a humidifier, sure. And vice versa, or if it, hot, cold place. So you want to make sure you have any appliance needed to make that a consistent environment. So and the other thing would be,
right? So
yeah, I guess that's a good way to say it. Air treatment.
So I've seen some of those humidifiers where they have like the Vicks plug-in part where you can add Vicks liquid to it to help them out. Have you ever used one of those?
We did only. We probably should have been using it sooner because our winters are pretty dry. in our house, especially just no moisture.
Okay.
So you guys are much more concerned parents about stuff like that than I ever was. I never even considered something like a humidifier or temperature beyond the reasonable temperature that we keep a house for everyone else in the household. Like it was, we've managed to evolve for 10,000 years on this planet. And it seemed like, humidity shouldn't be that big of a deal for a kid to deal with.
No.
So like, I'm not knocking you for it, but it was something that never even occurred to me. Like Mike was talking about the white noise thing last week too. Like noise is just a factor of life. I never even would have considered something to help mute out noise,
Sure.
While a kid was sleeping. The kid has to live in the environment that we all live in. So, and I like, it's something I never would have even thought of, and kudos to you guys for considering it.
So John actually brought up on his list, he had mentioned a noise generator too. So maybe white noise generator wasn't the right name for it, but
okay, but fair.
Yeah. So I think some of the differences are
More of a
up here, like city living. So sometimes you got a lot of that traffic stuff going on. You want to try to take the kids' attention away from the outside honking, the freight trains that pass by, all those sorts of things. That's my guess as to why they're more necessary in this area. And for the air treatment too, you might have a similar problem. If you live in a building where other units, even though you have your own temperature control, for some reason it gets hot as Hades in the wintertime because the lady below you likes to turn the heat up to 110. Stuff like that may affect it.
Well, there's things that you absolutely need, I think, and then there's things more for comfort. Maybe the air treatment's a little bit more of a prevalent type of topic when you're living in a urban area like a big city or something. But I think for me, we started thinking about it because it was just a product of what was being preached to us too. Like talking to people, the mini class that we took, I think at the hospital. These are all things that we kind of learned and wrote down. And sometimes I wonder if it's just a product of what's the hottest fad nowadays for babies.
Oh, sure. There's certainly a little bit of that. There's a lot of what's popular right now or what's convenient. And I wonder if sometimes it doesn't lead to a conversation about what makes us soft. And, as a people, the things like these that have kind of conditioned us from our outside influences, and if that benefits us or positively or whether it affects us negatively. Like I remember, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Carlin. Carlin used to have a bit about how kids didn't have an immune system now, like he and his friends did, because they used to swim in the Hudson. Like they would go and jump in the ditch and swim in the muck, and they didn't get sick as often as kids do now. And it seems like it's a fine line between protecting our kids from these things and preventing them from developing their own defenses against them.
So they may not have gotten sick as much, but look at the life expectancy now, right? For people born after that time period, right? So yeah, you may be more of a wimp up front, or may not be able to deal with that stuff up front. I don't know if wimp is the right word, but people are living a lot longer now because of a lot of these changes.
Well, I'm not making the ultra male, that we're all weenies now argument. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that there are certain environmental influences, and point in fact, in the U.S., our life expectancy is going back down versus the rest of the world.
Right.
Yeah. So I wonder.
Maybe we all need to jump in the Hudson.
I wonder at what point a little challenge, a little struggle behooves us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think you put it was his immune system's armed with automatic weapons and grenades or something like that. But another thought that popped into my head is that there's probably a certain level here is these products that come out that are not really for the baby. It's more for the parental comfort as well. It's like diapers, an older invention, but they didn't have diapers since the early caveman days either, and we seem to be doing just fine as well.
Alcohol, I would add that to the list for adults.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah. Plenty of alcohol, first and foremost. I'm running low on mine right now, as a matter of fact.
But yeah, I mean that's not a bad idea for a possible topic in the future, I think, Mike. So you can talk for days on this, I think.
No, I think there's a lot of this stuff we can talk for days on. Is that it for your list?
Pretty much, yeah, that's the crux of my list. There's some other things here, but by and large, we covered most of that already.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we were going to jump to Lou next, actually. So, Lou, do you have your 10 list?
I think John hit it. I don't want to belabor the point, but you guys pretty much nailed the top 10 list. I don't think there's anything else.
Okay.
Other than that I would actually add to that. So I think
do you have any of the inverse there, Lou? You seem like a guy that might have a few good ideas of what not to get as a registry.
Well, that might not be a bad idea.
The what not to get. One thing that I saw, and you get a little nutty with this, is like, is my kid turning over? And while he's sleeping, you want to keep him snug, but you also want to keep him safe. And one of these things that they actually had, which I thought was interesting, is like they had like a full sensor that you can put underneath the kid's pad, and you'll know where the kid's actually moving to. And I thought that was kind of interesting. We never got that. I thought that was a complete waste of money.
But you thought it was cool enough to consider? It
was interesting. It was a thought, because you're just thinking about what is this kid gonna, is he gonna turn over, and is he gonna get caught up against the netting? Is he gonna get caught in his? One of the biggest things you understand is, or you start to think about, is like whether or not this kid's actually gonna like suffocate when he's wrapped up and he's gonna have the whatever around his neck or whatever. You get a little nutty with your first kid, right? And you could tend to kind of like stand over them, So that's like one reason why it's like, maybe it's not a bad idea, but I thought at the end of the day it wasn't really worth it.
So when we started this podcast, Lou, I started it to try to ease my mind, to try to learn more things, to try to be more prepared. I'm finding that every week I'm getting more and more anxious and a little bit more stressed out, learning about the things that you guys are thinking about that I never thought of, and I'm like, oh god.
Good.
Yeah.
You should, like in the words of Yoda, you should be. You should be afraid of this, because if you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You're never. You could have every piece of advice going into this entire scenario and think that you're prepared, but at the end of the day, when you see the kid's face for the first time, and then you just start to like melt, and then you have to deal with all the other stuff that comes in afterwards, and then you're like, that's when the proverbial hits the fan kind of thing. And then and then everything kind of like you learn when to figure out when these things actually come to, need to put all this stuff together kind of thing. But
sure,
it doesn't really mean that much until once you get that, man, it's like, wow, then like I said, you'll get a little nutty. Don't worry about it.
Oh, I'm getting there. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Well, you haven't even hit your stride yet, so don't worry about it. Those nutties you think you are right now, don't worry. You're going to go a lot higher. Don't worry about that.
Oh, no, I had a feeling.
Maybe once you have your kid, just throw it in the Hudson real quick. If it survives that, then you got nothing to worry about.
Well, I don't recommend something like that. Maybe you want to jump on the Hudson at that point in time to kind of cool off. But I would stay away from anything that's near the Hudson. And anything that George Carlin wants to say too.
Okay.
But yeah, products like that. I mean, I think Lauren and I bought a thing called the Owlet. I think it's called the Owlet. I forget a lot of these product names. I should probably write them down, but
we lost you, John.
John's gone.
Okay. Well, Earl, do you want to talk about what you may have put on your list? Does it match with what we had? You don't have to run through the whole thing if we kind of hit a bunch of them.
Yeah, everything's pretty much the same. We talked about the baby monitor. That was the one that was different. The nice nail clippers and hand coverings can't be overstated. Oh, and hats, caps that we found in an area when it was cold, because my youngest was born up there in the mountains in Virginia, and we discovered that having the little beanie caps was really helpful during the winter. But beyond that, no, everything else is pretty the same. One of the things that we talked about that I kind of shared my thoughts with you about it, Mike, before, when we were talking about doing these lists, is the absurdity of them. Not the list itself, the absurdity of registry lists to me. the idea that the registry list is like having a baby and getting married are the only two things that we do as adults that we ask other people to openly contribute to. And that's kind of silly to me. I don't like, it seems like that as parents, and I went through it with all of them. There's no judgment here. I did 6 different registries. So, but the idea that, like I said before, like when you buy a car or you buy a house, you don't give people a list and say, hey, here's the things I need to make this work.
Yeah, so you make a life decision as an adult and expect people to give you gifts.
Yeah,
you could make that list, but I don't think you're really gonna get
here's the things that would make this easier on me.
We have a brunch banquet at this hall. I want you guys to bring these gifts. My ribs, I registered for air fresheners. Whoever brings those is the cheap person.
So it seems like the older I get, the sillier things like that seem to me.
Sure.
Like, and I guess I don't know. It's weird. Maybe that's my privilege talking too. And that I feel comfortable in being able to provide all of those things myself too. And maybe that's the idea, is a village helping contribute, to helping you bring your family, to bear. So I don't know, but it's a whole weird, awkward situation for me. I don't ask for help well anyway, in general. And it's a whole, even like making this lists were strangely uncomfortable to me.
Yeah, no, I think Lou kind of felt the same way actually. So Lou, in some different words, had mentioned. Lou, do you want to expand on that too?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the only thing that I would say, Mike, is maybe first time around, it's a different scenario because you're running into things you just kind of don't know about, and I guess the fun, Earl, is just including people who. I think it's a lot more about what everybody else wants to basically contribute to your life as opposed to what you want them to contribute. There's a different viewpoint. So I think that people, especially like moms, grandmas, grandpa, and that kind of thing, they want to contribute, aunts and stuff like that. They want to like, okay, we got another kid coming in. Let's kind of contribute. This will be fun. I think it's a lot of fun for them, and they can kind of help take some of the pressure off too. Right. So, and hopefully they can be there for the first week or two or first 30 days to kind of help you out. But, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm right with Earl on a lot of that stuff. So.
Oh, you just made me think of something that Mike is completely unprepared for. And maybe not, because he's got nieces and nephews. But I was completely unprepared for the way my father changed when he became a grandfather. Like, what you're talking about wanting to contribute was night and day.
So, like, your parents, how they treated you versus your parents.
My God. Or just his general, like, life outlook. The man who raised me was, and I'm not going to say his name, but we'll call him Sergeant Dad. And
I like that.
And it's Sergeant Dad was a completely different person than Grandpa Dad. Grandpa Dad walks into a room with 20s and starts handing them out to grandkids. And I'm not kidding. He literally does that. And Sergeant Dad, made me get a job at 15 and pay for everything myself. And it's just been absurd. It's interesting to watch. And that change happened instantly. Like, he went from being my dad to grandpa on the day of the birth. Like, I watched it happen.
I'd love to get Sergeant Dad on the show.
Oh, there is zero chance of that happening.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
Sergeant Dad loves me. I am his only son, and he will do anything for me. He thinks I'm an idiot.
Oh man. I don't think he thinks you're. Well, if you're saying it still, then maybe, but
that's not, I don't think he doesn't love me. I think he absolutely does. But I've just, he's never going to get over the mistakes I've made in my life. So, and I've made some dumb ones.
Let's move on from the registries. I think we're basically done there. out of the items that we discussed for the first 60 days, there's a number of them that are really needed for when you bring the baby home to kind of get you comfortable there. So things like the crib, if you're using a bassinet, don't seem like they're really necessary, or things like a noise generator. Obviously, that's not absolutely necessary. But when you get the kid home, like the medical kit or the emergency kit, the first aid kit, whatever, and the thermometers and things like that to basically make sure your kid's still healthy and breathing. Do you guys have any suggestions on what should be included with that, or what should we be looking for that aren't typically included in these first aid kits?
I mean, you keep anything to keep the baby warm or cool, clean, and fed. I mean, that's it. You know, towels, your bottles and nibbles, you know, blankets, and a place for it to sleep. Everything else is, you know, and the nail clippers, because they all try to gouge their own eyes out for some reason. I guess that's their initial existential crisis in the world. Is
I would say that mom is your emergency kit, right? She's your first aid kit first and foremost, right? And I think the biggest problems you're going to run into, Mike, and if it happens, is just temperature, right? But temperature, you know, going high rather. So you got to be careful about that. And then
is high for temperature different for babies than adults? Like, where do you start? Where should you start being alarmed?
I would say there's a difference between babies and then newborns, right? So newborns coming home and crazy toddlers, you know. Toddlers are different than babies that are different than
This is the Talkin Dads podcast. So.
This is the Talkin Dads podcast. And so I would say that when you start getting temperature with a newborn, it's something where you're going to take action really quick, right? You know, you want to bring him or her to the doctor fast. And you know, you'll learn something about that. Tylenol, and what was the other one that we actually use? Motrin. You'll find that those come in handy, but for the 60 days, I don't. You want to make sure that those temperatures are in check, and I think you're going to be bringing your kid to the doctor, you know, fairly regularly in the first 30 days. Like the day you come home, and the next day you're going to the doctor, make sure everything's kind of okay, right? So and healthy. So my kids are pretty healthy.
Yep,
pretty
they seem healthy. Is it? Yeah. I'm guessing it's nap time, Lou. Is that?
It is nap time. Yeah, and I think we kind of went past nap time because they just have too much energy. It's kind of raining, and we didn't have a chance to really go outside, so they're using their energy inside, as you can tell. So, you know, it'll be mom's chore to basically keep the kid warm and cold. She'll keep it next to her, and the cool thing is you'll learn, Mike, is they say that the mom, as you put the baby close to the mom, like on her chest, she regulates the body temperature actually, which is kind of interesting. When it's cold, she warms the baby up. When it's hot, she'll cool the baby down. It's automatic. It happens. It's just that touch factor.
Even with fevers, like if they have a fever, is that what you're saying?
Moms have this ability to kind of cool and to kind of warm up. It's kind of part of their body. It's actually really wild that moms that closest to their. Oh.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Am I back?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Welcome back, John.
Hey guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Let's take.
I've been sitting silent. I never lost you guys, so I was just waiting for a good moment. But Lou's right. I think there's been studies that show that even if the kid's getting sick, without the mother consciously knowing that the kid's getting sick, if she's breastfeeding, her body will produce a different formula, basically, that will give the kid the nutrients and the things that they need to help fight it, which is kind of crazy to think about.
For the body temperature, though, even if the baby's not breastfeeding, does that make a difference? Does anybody have experience with that?
You're the child laying on top of the woman's chest, on top of the mom's chest.
That's it.
Because the temperature does change, and it does. Moms are able, and they'll tell you this in the hospital if they haven't told you this already. The moms are actually able to regulate their skin temperatures automatically and cool the baby down when it's warm, and warm the baby up when it's cool. So it's a pretty amazing thing that dads don't have. So we're not.
So you haven't been able to do it. That was going to be my
Dads
follow-up
can't.
question.
Dads cannot do it. It's only moms that can basically do it. So you can put the child on your chest, and you're not going to basically be able to do anything. There's comfort, there's smells, there are things that they can actually get used to, which actually makes them feel comfortable. Because they'll be around you, and that makes them feel comfortable. But the temperature, that's not something you can do.
You can probably keep them warm though, Mike.
I'm pretty sure I can keep a whole room warm. I run hot. So I want to try something different here. I wanted to let you three come up with some questions here together. I'll give you guys 5 minutes to come up with 10 questions for me. I'm going to go on mute, not listen to you guys. You guys come up with the questions, see how I answer them, and see if I've been learning so far.
So 10 questions apiece?
No. 10
You want
questions.
30 questions?
Okay.
No, not 30 questions. This isn't a
Why
final
don't
exam.
why don't we just do 5? I
Okay,
think
5 works.
is a lot.
5 works. Are you guys down for this, or do you want to do a different topic?
The learning thing, I mean, is honestly, some of the stuff is you're going to learn. It's like going to the classes before you actually have the kid. They're going to teach you all these things to do, and then when you get to that position, you actually toss out everything you actually ever learned.
Okay.
So, it's like, okay, breathe. Like what? Was it like how many breaths and how many what? I don't know.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm not that thrilled about treating it like a project and doing a lessons learned. Like if you want to have a separate, you don't want to do your own like Mike's discussion about, hey, I learned this that I didn't know before.
All right.
But that sounds too much like work.
No problem. I was just trying to throw a topic out there because I
Yeah.
Well, to use the project management vernacular, we're past the charter. We're now in the planning stage. We haven't got the execution stage yet.
What sprint are we in?
No, we're using waterfall. We're not using agile. So let's be serious.
Yeah, I don't know. If he wants more than one kid, it's going to be iterative.
Yeah, well, if you want to do agile, then you're going to have to do 2-week sprints, and you're going to have all your stakeholders in one room. So that's probably not going to happen.
There you go.
All
The
right.
first one's just a prototype.
Yeah.
Stop saying funny things. I need to step away for 5 minutes. I'm trying to hand this off to you guys.
I gotta go pee.
Well, I have to use the restroom.
Don't you
I need
love
to
how
step
he
away.
feels like he needs to be around for all the
Oh
funny
yeah, no,
things?
it's perfect.
Me.
No, not that. No, it's because I
No,
don't want
it's
you guys
not
to
that.
waste them while we're making the decision, so I could just step away.
Are you
I
actually
gotta
still
go.
recording, or you stopped recording?
No, it's still recording. I started recording everything now, so I
Okay.
would use the restroom, but I was just trying to think of. You guys want to take a topic that's related to this stuff?
All right, go use the bathroom. We'll figure it out. We're okay. Just shake 3 times before you come back. Wash your hands too, please.
Lou will know.
I'm not going near that. I'm not even in the same.
That's one of the superpowers that dads have. They know they can
your
smell
hands.
it across Skype.
Wash your hands. Oh, there's all kinds of superpowers that you will gain, by the way. That's for sure.
Oh, you know what my favorite is? The it's too quiet superpower. Like the moment when you know that you haven't heard a noise in 5 or 10 minutes and you know something disastrous is happening.
It's about to basically.
That's my favorite dad superpower that I developed.
I don't know if I've gotten really. I just know when to keep it going. I know when my daughter likes to suck her thumb, so I think the only thing is I can constantly know that she's always going to be sucking her thumb, so I can just tell her like no thumb,
Yeah.
But my kids are constantly getting the quiet thing, as you may have heard earlier. They're not super quiet, and they're so you can always tell. I like it when they actually are quiet because they're usually sitting in front of the TV, but they'll. When something happens, it's usually you melt. Like somebody kicked somebody or somebody pushed somebody, and somebody's coming over, running over, and screaming. And what did you do? I pushed them. And why are you crying? Well, it's because I feel guilty, it props up to the fact that they actually admit to it. My daughter is actually 20 months older than my son is, and she's bigger than he is, and she's pushing around. And I just keep on saying, "Be careful. He's going to get bigger, and you're going to want his help." So,
What about you, John? You got any new dad superpowers?
I gotta say, I think my favorite one is just dad strength.
Dad
Just
strength.
pure force. It's like I love that. I think I've always been a relatively fit person, but I don't know. I find myself holding my son, who's now probably like almost 40 pounds, stroller, all 5 bags of groceries and like an umbrella. And it's like, it's not that bad. And it's those moments, I think, in the rain, right? And I'm like, man, I made it. I got my dad strength. I don't know. I think that's my favorite superpower so far.
Let me tell you, as they get older, the best one that I've developed with the older kids is the dad joke superpower. I'm the king. Oh, the king of the dad
That's a
joke.
good one.
Oh, like when you were talking about the sound machine, I wanted so bad to ask you if it was the Miami brand.
Why didn't you say that? Miami Sound.
You should have.
It was on the tip of my tongue. I got the Miami Sound machine. Son of a bitch.
But, I do it. Oh my God. I torture the teenagers all the time. Like they'll get up in the morning. Like I'll start a Pitbull song on my phone and get it queued up. And when they drag themselves out of their room at like 6 a.m., they'll find me in the hallway dancing to Pitbull. And it just ruins their whole day.
I don't have that yet. I think I could do just about. I don't want to say I could do no wrong, but if I can go out there and mow the lawn. That's a dad superpower.
Oh, nice. That's a good feeling. Like when they look up to you that way, that's a great feeling.
It's and the jokes, we have the round of applause, which is when you take your hands and you're clapping them and you're going in a circle. And my daughter just thinks that's the funniest thing in the world, and she just laughs her head off. And my son's right there with him. And I think those superpowers are amazing when you can make your kids kind of like laugh. I think the other one is like when you could, and I don't necessarily know if I have this down, when you can basically stop them from actually doing something. It's like just by saying
the diversion skills.
Yeah, it's like, and there's not really much you can. Let's be honest, there's not really much you can do. It's like I'm going to put you in your crib for 3 minutes, and you're gonna have time out. Okay, after a while, it doesn't really mean that much, but if you can get that kid to basically stop doing whatever they're doing, that's a superpower.
See, I envy you guys that, like all three of you, like, see, now as my children get older, like I've got more mature relationships with them. Like the jokes we tell are more mature jokes, and the TV shows and movies and the conversations we have are all mature. But that innocence that they had back then is gone. And the innocence that I have about our relationship is gone too. Like you guys, and I'm by no means trying to dampen the experience at all. But like you guys haven't had to deal with, your kid breaking your heart yet. And that's like, when that finally happens, it changes your perspective. And you lose a little bit of that, like that gilded sheen on the way they look at you. Whether it's you disappointing them or them disappointing you on something really serious. And, I really do envy you guys, like the stage that you're at, because I remember that. And there's no feeling like it in the world. I wish sometimes that I could just have moments of that back.
Well, I'm going to have another beer now.
I'm sorry. I am. I'm sure.
No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, you're right. That I actually haven't thought about that.
Like, yeah, you guys are in essentially the honeymoon phase of parenthood, and it's beautiful, and that it's something you should cherish every moment of while it lasts.
You're getting me nervous because I'm thinking this is a honeymoon. So I guess you're right. I mean, it's my wife gets to go down with the kids and sleep with them for the next couple of hours right now. So that's pretty cool. And she really likes to do that. And the kids are pretty much controllable, for all intents and purposes. You can kind of push them back into play, so to speak. They're not bigger. They can be kind of corralled, which is helpful. And as they get a little bit bigger, it's going to be harder to basically make sure that you can kind of keep them reined in.
Well, I mean, just their knowledge of you hasn't changed yet either. Like as your kids grow, like you learn everything about them up to a certain point, right? But there's a point where your lives kind of start to diverge, and they're doing stuff without you that you don't know about, but they still know everything about you because you're always there. You're the you're the pillar in their life. So they're always aware of you, but you're not always aware of what they're doing. And
Well-
eventually your kid's going to say something awful to you. We've all done it. We've all lashed out at a parent, and in a moment of anger, whether we're like 8-year-old and we didn't get the toy we wanted, or whether we were 18 years old and we did something awful, or whatever the situation is. And there's something that comes with that level of knowledge about a person that you kind of have to grow past.
I'm going on record to basically say that my parents were never, ever disappointed in me, and whatever I did, I was just perfect at all times. I never made a mistake. Even when they came to the police station, it was not my fault.
Right.
It's never my fault. I didn't do it.
When it came to the
principal's office, or the principal's office, or wherever it basically was. I don't necessarily say it was at the police station per se, but I'm pleading the fifth on that one. But I've definitely
the police station. I thought you said PlayStation, like the Sony.
No,
I was like,
police station. I was definitely in the principal's office quite a few times, and I got to know him on a first name basis. But it was never my fault. I was always a good kid.
So what we're talking about, Mike, is we're talking about my envy of you guys at the phase that you're at in your life, that you're in the what I call the honeymoon phase of your fatherhood, where everything is still, beautiful and lovely, and everything is happy. Even the bad stuff is still happy, and how much I envy that process. And John has started drinking, apparently.
On my second one already, Earl. You just brought me way down, man.
Well, I might, because I heard the whole part. So going back to what you said, their kids are eventually going to break your heart. And I think that's when John said he was going to break out a beer.
Yeah.
I started thinking about the same thing. I haven't even met my kid yet, and thinking about that, it's like,
No, you're too far. You're way too far away, and that's the furthest.
Oh yeah,
I know that.
Yeah. Like you're so much in that. I mean, I think the great thing about what Earl's saying about the honeymoon phase, which is really nice, is like everything right now should be wine and roses for you right now, and drink as much as you possibly can, because right after your kid's born, you won't be drinking as much as you are now. So,
that's true.
Go out for dinners.
At least not during normal times when you'd normally be drinking.
Yeah, go out for dinners before like month 8 or 7 or whatever. Once she basically has her feet up and she's not going to say, "I don't want to go out." Go out for dinners, go out for movies, and enjoy yourself as much as you possibly can now. And even I think the first kid for me was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months that we were still going out for dinner, and she was pretty quiet. But after having 2 kids, that's not going to happen anymore because the other one's gotten older. But
sure,
go out and enjoy yourself. The honeymoon phase right now, I think Earl is like still being able to go out, and for Mike going out and just having fun.
That makes me think of something too that we learned that as time progressed through the different kids, and it's a really good point, is spend some time with your friends, like when you go out and have dinner with your friends and say them and give them a little forewarning that, especially if you have friends that don't have kids, that hey, things are about to change and I'm not going to have as much time, but let them know that they're important to you too, so they don't think you're just cutting them out of your life. Sure. Because I lost a lot of friends very early because they didn't understand why I didn't have the time that I used to have, because they didn't have a frame of reference for what was going on inside my house. So enjoy your friends while you can too.
Yeah, from
say to them.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say you're not as important as my kid is at this point in time. So that's pretty, but that's pretty understandable.
Implied.
That makes sense. If they have
pretty
a
understandable
that,
at that point. Yeah, I mean, it's like like my wife and my kid are going to come before you do, or before my fun does at this point.
Sure, people are understanding of that, but the mistake we made was not understanding that ahead of time, where we just got wrapped up in our own world and cut off contact, and people take that personally. Whereas if you go, hey, like, I know you don't have a kid, but you need to understand that, especially for the next year or two, I'm not going to have free time. It's not you, it's me, so to speak. But that's the reality of it. Give them a heads up.
Well, honestly, that type of a heads up and only strengthen your friendship anyway, right? I mean, oftentimes, not to go too even deeper, but we don't really tell our friends how much we actually care or need them in our lives, right? So,
Right.
I agree, Earl. I mean, I think any chance you get to tell them that or express that, and then inversely, any chance you get to go hang out with them, do it. Especially in what you call the honeymoon phase, is take advantage of those moments because. Like Luke put it, once you have, and once you have even more, if you do have more, they'll be few and far between. So, I guess savor those times.
So, how's it with you, John, with only one kid?
I feel like it's definitely not as difficult, but I think I have enough experience now where I can see how that can happen. Especially, it's not just a kid thing, right? You're still trying to lead your own life as well. And you just throw in a kid in that, and now you throw in another one. The more you add on, the more you're going to get buried. So I guess I could say I'm one step closer to seeing that reality.
I wonder what it's like for having more than two. Because a friend of mine said, after you have your second one, it's not twice as hard. It's 47 times harder.
That's 100% true, especially once they get older and all have distinct activities. It becomes a scheduling nightmare. Like, and eventually you have to disappoint someone. Eventually you have to go, I'm just going to drop you off at this. I can't stay because I have to drive 15 miles in the other direction to take your brother to his thing. And no, I'm not going to stay for his either because I also have to take your sister to her thing. Like exponential's the word for it. And conflicting because there's going to be days when they have important stuff for all of them that they all want you at. And you have to find a way to pick and choose with your kids.
It's when you sit home and crack that beer open, right?
Well, that's when you recruit. That's when you recruit other people. Like that's when one parent goes to one thing, the other parent goes to something else, and you grab a grandparent and a best friend, and like you make sure there's people there to support them at those things. And then you have to keep track of who was the last time that had mom at this thing, so you can rotate around. It's because kids internalize that stuff. You may not remember that you missed the last baseball game of last season, but he will.
Oh yeah. Just think about yourself, right? In those situations. What did your parents miss when you were growing up, when you were going through these things? Which ones affected you? Yeah.
Oh, sir, I was the child of an alcoholic mother and a father who was always deployed in the military. I barely had parents. Like they missed everything.
Luckily for me, there was enough crossover. I have 3 brothers. We're all pretty close in age. There was a lot of crossover with a lot of things that we did, a lot of the activities we were in. So I didn't really experience it too much. But then the times that it did happen, it made sense because I have 3 brothers, and how the hell are you going to be at all 3 things? But,
right. But you can't be there for it all.
That brings me to what you said before, though, Earl. The first time your kid breaks your heart, right? But what about the opposite? The first time you realize you broke your kid's heart, and how do you handle that? How do you deal with that?
Well, I suppose that you find that there's going to be levels of breaking your kid's heart. Like you're going to break a 2-year-old's heart because you tell them they can't have the cookie. Like that's going to be
breaks my heart though too. So.
Right. That's going to be a hard break. But that's when they'll get over it. That's just normal. The other one is the kind of thing we talked about before about, what happens when you have a moment when you have to lie to your kid and they find out about it. And there's the lies of choice, like we talked about with Santa or like a tooth fairy. Like those are minor betrayals, but that you have to lie for something else for some other reason. And then they find out about it. There's all of these things that you can do that, change the way your kids see you. And eventually they mature and they make their own mistakes and they see you as a complete person. But part of that process is changing that perception from the hero. And it's weird. It's a weird kind of cycle because you come back around to the hero place. At least I have in my life. Like you lose, like I lost my dad as my hero, but then I've come back around as an adult and he's my hero again because I understand the choices he made and the things that he did and the things that he went through. And I can see it through a complete lens. So, like, when you're young, you see it through a rose-colored lens, right? And then the rose-colored lens slightly gets moved away and everything's kind of painful and bright and you don't like it. And like the kid, that's when you get the angry and it leads into the teenage years. But then that lens slides away as they get older, as we get older, and then you see the world in full color. And when you see that, you can see your parents as complete people. They can be your heroes again.
It's a lot to think about.
Sorry, did I lose everybody?
No, can you still hear me? There's a freight train going by. I wanted to go on mute.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get off on a tangent. I don't know why my brain went there.
No, that's good.
No, it brings up a great point. I mean, this is not the only thing I extracted from.
John's dad's superpower is disappearing.
John just said, that's a great point, and it went silent.
The point about
That's amazing. And remember, don't forget to...
Really?
Hey, John, you're having some connection issues.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's getting worse.
You sound like the
I'll give it a moment.
Charlie.
Carry on.
Carry on. So you were talking about dad's superpowers before. I thought that was a pretty funny topic to go through. And Earl, you mentioned when things are too quiet. Lou, I think I missed yours. What did you say? Is Lou, you still there?
He kind of followed me with my superpower.
Oh, did we lose Lou too?
He may have stepped away.
He was jealous of my superpower.
I think Lou got tired of my shit. Lou was like, I'm out.
I'm out.
Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, we can hear you, John.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I think maybe
I'm
he
here.
stepped away. Oh, hey, there you are. So was asking the question about dad's superpowers. Earl had said, his is realizing something's wrong when things are too quiet, and you had followed up with something. I wasn't sure what you followed up with.
We were just talking about like things like being able to mow a lawn or doing things that they just can't actually do at that point. So my kids sit there and stare out the window when I'm outside working around the house or something like that.
Are you working outside your house right now because you sound that far away?
No, I'm not working outside my house, but I can go there if you want me to. There's plenty of stuff to do.
No. What other dad superpowers are there that you'll develop? Things that you'll realize that your kid's doing that you should react to in a certain way. I think at one point last week, as much as I don't want to bring poop back up, but you said the poop face, knowing when your kid's pooping, being able to identify that.
Oh, you know what I learned? I learned how to take a nut punch from my kids. That's what I learned.
Wait. I'm sorry, what?
I'm just starting on that lesson, actually.
Yeah.
Though. It's funny that you
As your
mentioned that.
kids
That
become
happened to...
mobile, they'll run up and get...
stomping,
So,
especially with the heavy shoes that we got them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're going to be stomped, kicked, punched, headbutted, grabbed. Yeah.
Oh, boy. So,
I mean, that's just during when you're sleeping, by the way, too. If your kid's sleeping next to you, you're going to get kicked in the head. But I just remember the superpowers, and it's actually a really good one, is when you can hear that kid starting to pout or just before they go into full-blown scream and something's really wrong, being able to distinguish even above the din when there's something happening to your kid and you know it, and then you're there. So that's something where I can be in the other room, be in the kitchen and hear my kid get up, and I'll even say, shh, and then bam, I'm back there. So that is, I think, the superpower that you will acquire, is being able to distinguish what's going on with your kid at that point.
It's pretty crazy.
Overall, your situational awareness becomes so sharpened.
You basically become mind readers, and you can spider sense, right?
Oh, yeah, you're a cold reader. Like, you learn to read facial expressions. Yeah. And frequencies. Like I hadn't thought about it before, Lou, but you're right. Like if your kid starts to cry across the room in a room full of other kids who are crying, you'll be able to find your kid. Like you get keyed in on their frequency somehow.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a pretty cool superpower when you can actually determine, this is your own. Yeah, these are part of you. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. I think another one could be just understanding baby talk. I think that kind of parallels a lot of what we're saying, but I mean, I think in a simple term, when he goes da-da, and like he's not pointing at anything or looking at anything, and I can kind of assume what he's saying. I think that's pretty cool as well.
What does that mean? The da-da.
It has different meanings. That's the point. It can mean Thomas the Train, or it can mean a fan, or it could mean anything.
Now, so one of them, I'm guessing, is being able to identify the different types of crying that your kid does have, right? Now, what's the poop cry? What's the I'm hungry cry? And are these things ever figured out?
Oh yeah, and what's the bullshit fake cry? The one that they're doing just because
That's
they want
the first
something.
one you'll learn, I think.
Oh yeah, your kids will learn to lie to you on their own. By the way, that's something that will happen without any help from you. They'll learn that they want something, and how to get it through manipulation.
Or if I can't go to get it through mom, let's go through dad, or vice versa.
Oh yeah.
They did look. It's amazing how they learn how to do that without any intervention whatsoever.
Wow. Basically getting what they want. So kind of like, not that kids are dogs, but like kind of like your dog will sit
manipulation.
there and start crying. Manipulation, yeah.
Just a minute. I would, let's not bring the dog thing into it.
I think it's kind of similar, though.
No.
Well, I do. So do you have a dog?
I've had dogs growing up, and I would say that dogs and children are actually completely different. And it bothers me so much when people turn around and say, I know what it's like to have a kid. I have a dog.
No,
Let me kick you right in the teeth when you say something like that.
I don't. That's not what I'm saying. I was just making a comparison, right? So your dog will sit there and cry and whine about certain things, and you know that your dog just wants a treat, right? So I guess it's not that.
No, it's when your kid is going to you and you shut them down, and then they go over to their mom and they basically be like, okay, can I try that here, right? So it's a difference of the intelligence factor kind of going up when they're kind of like, they learn. There's a learning process that basically happens, and then when there's a negative thing that happens to them, when there's something that's like, okay, I did this, something negative happened to me. All right, if I do this again, I'm probably not going to tell them I did it. So it's just they automatically learn, and it's my daughter, when she does something and I turn around and say, did you do this? And she's like, yeah. It's like, all right, props to you for basically turning around and saying, I did this, so that's kind of cool. But there'll be a time when she'll be like, well, maybe not, so that's something you're going to have to basically deal with at that point in time. It's like, well, I think you did. Yeah. So they learn because the negative effects of what's going to happen next, so that's where I think the lying comes in. But Earl, you'd have to educate us as to whether or not that actually takes place,
Oh, absolutely. My daughter, one of my favorite stories about my daughter is she used to love crayons and markers. Even as soon as she could crawl and get to a marker, she would. She learned very early what it was and what it did. And so we would take it away from her when she would find one. Well, as she progressed towards the toddler stage, she started to stash markers in stages around the house.
I love that.
That's awesome.
So she'd gather them up and wait till she had 3 or 4, right? And she would purposefully get caught with the first one. So we'd take it away from her, and then she'd crawl over to where she'd stash the second one and then start drawing on the wall with the second one.
That's beyond. That's like stealthy spy, super intelligence kind of stuff.
It was ridiculous.
It's a pretty smart kid.
Yeah, she figured out that we were going to take away what she wanted, and that there were more than what she wanted. Like we had more of those. So the solution wasn't to cry to get the one back. The solution was to go get the next one.
Give up the one so they basically go away, and then grab the other ones. Man, that's
exactly
diabolical.
right. My kid essentially made a marker gambit.
It's just it is. It's all right. We know we're going to get caught, so why don't we just give up this one? But we actually have these others over here, so we're all cool.
Yep. The Sharpie Gambit of 2004.
My son and my daughter hasn't figured that one out, and I rue the day that they actually do. But my son
don't let him listen to this episode.
Oh, my son would actually we had to take the crayons away from him because he would all right, I'm going to play the crayons to a certain point before he starts to eat them.
Oh no!
And you'd have to basically take them away. So now they're gone. Or the great thing, Mike, and you'll learn about this, is when they start to realize that coloring and drawing is not just for paper anymore. You can do this all over a lot of things: floors, walls, whatever it's actually going to take to that little crayon or coloring thing. And that's a wonderful day when you actually find that your house will now be crayon and color in certain areas that are their height.
The Mr. Clean Magic Eraser is your friend.
That thing works like nobody's business, and it's ridiculous how incredible it is.
It's basically super fine grit sandpaper. That's all it is.
Oh, that is 100. I refuse to believe that. There has to be some kind of chemical in that thing.
It's either that it's chemical or mixed in with definitely a little bit of magic.
Yeah,
for sure.
Hence
and I have to believe that. Yeah, exactly. I would believe that Gandalf or somebody actually put a spell on that wicked thing, because it definitely does. It works. I don't know how it does. It's like a thermos. It just doesn't really care what it actually is. It's going to clean it, like a thermos knows to keep something cold and to keep something hot. When it's hot, keep it hot. When it's cold, keep it cold. This thing actually just knows that regardless of what I'm going to actually hit, I'm going to clean it. And it's just ridiculous. And we need them as a sponsor, by the way, because they're just fantastic.
So if you guys out there, our listeners, if you have an interesting story about how a magic eraser, Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, got you out of a mess with your kids drawing on the walls, peeing on something or whatever,
it's not going to help. It's not going to help with the pee.
Not going to help with the pee. But give us your story either through Twitter, twitter.com/Talkin Dads, or you mention us at Talkin Dads. Let's do hashtag Mr. Clean versus babies. Also on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Talkin Dads. Visit our website, talkindads.com, or yousuggested.com/Talkin Dads. And Lou, do you want to tell us how You Suggested can help with getting our ideas out there? If we need something better, more magic infused other than just a magic eraser, how would people go about doing that using You Suggested?
I would say that the Talkin Dads thing is a great idea to basically go there, and you can search on Talkin Dads when you go to You Suggested with the letter U, and go into the site and just make a suggestion as to first of all what things that we should talk about, but beyond that, the site has got a bunch of products on there, and we want to also learn about what other products you want to, or brands that you want to actually now communicate with. But when I first started touching products as a father, new products especially, and I'm like, oh wow, this thing can be a little bit better. I don't know what you guys were doing with bibs, and John, you may have seen this, and Earl, you probably did too. It's like you got these plastic bibs, and the kid. You latch the bib on the back, and the kid, the bib would slide off, and the bib would actually then cut into itself, and eventually it would break. So somebody realized that this was an issue. So what they did is they reinforced the area where the little button would go through, and they did a little different thing on the button. And it's like these very little things, Mike, and that kind of changes our lives. But because they're, you see them every day and you deal with it, you can come into the brand and make a suggestion, and and it's enough to basically make that thing last another 2 months, 3 months, or 6 months. But it's also enough to make your life a little bit easier. So
from the smallest suggestion to the biggest suggestions,
yeah, I mean, it's simple things like that you'll learn after touching stuff that especially as a new dad, and our lives evolved. What I did 2 years ago, 3 years ago, especially before having kids, is different than I do right today. And same thing happens when you get married, and the same thing happens as you get older. And everything you start to touch, you start to have different ways of looking at things and be like, oh wow, I have kids now. This thing should do that. So that product that you actually use or that brand that actually you're talking to at this point in time, needs to basically, change with you. So we want to hear, and the brands essentially want to hear how you want those things to change so they can actually stay current with your needs. And I think the beauty part about it is we're gonna help get that message out to them so they actually deliver that product to you at that point in time. That's exactly where you want it to be. So that's the beauty part about it.
And change the world. Possibly the first dad superpower you can attain. You suggest it.
Yeah, I think that's a great superpower, is being able to change something. So, but that's something you could touch every day too. It's like, oh, I did this. This was fun. Tell my kid, hey, I made that suggestion.
That's how the double stuff Oreo was born, right? Someone's like, I just need this to be a little bit more stuffed.
Just a little bit more.
I think the double stuffed Oreo, Mike, that's actually chocolate covered and then fried. That's keep on going up another level.
Yeah, that's when the suggestion gets a little outrageous, and they don't want to make that.
But it's better. I mean, everything you can do and adding on. I mean, double stuffed Oreo was great. Double stuffed Oreo with chocolate on, ooh, that's even better. You fry that baby, and that's come on, keep on going.
There you go. So yousuggested.com.
Thank you.
It's good for you. Good for me.
Good for all of us.
Good for all of us. I have one question that I wanted to bring up as a topic at one point. The sonograms and stuff, looking at them in the different sessions that you go to, the things to look out for, that basically I'm learning what each one of those tests are for. Like this past one was less about, even though you can figure out the gender on this one, like the 20-week one, it's more about like looking at the brain and kidneys and making sure that all 10 fingers and toes are there.
Yeah, the full anatomy scan. Yeah.
So, like, have you guys had any scares during those? I know that when my mother was pregnant with my younger brother, the doctor actually called one day and said, that based on the sonogram, that it looked like the baby had spina bifida. And they started talking about termination as an option. And thank God this happened the very next day, after my mom had to basically spend that whole day thinking about that. The next day, the doctor calls back. It's like, we got your scan or your sonogram mixed up with somebody else's. Like that's.
I was about to say that. Oh, sorry, we got your mixed up with somebody else's.
Yeah, but that's
horrible.
Yeah, that's.
We had
terrible.
one of those too. That actually, that wasn't anything that detrimental, but it was scary to us. Was where they told us they thought it was twins. And that scared the crap out of us because we were barely prepared for one.
I have a question regarding the password again. So when you reset
the password is 123456, just like a idiot's luggage combination.
Right, that's what I have in my luggage.
It's Spaceballs.
Baseball.
1, 2, 3,
Only
4,
an
5.
idiot would put that as their combination.
That's my luggage combination.
The other thing I wanted to bring up was the size of the baby. All kids are different. All kids are going to grow at different paces at different rates. But if you're preparing for newborn size 0, under 10-pound type baby, and all of the stuff you get, right, where Caitlin and I spoke to each other, I'm like, well, if we're getting all this stuff, we should probably hold off on buying too much of it because when I was born 9 pound 1 ounce, and I was 24 inches long. I was a big baby, and I'm just over 6 feet, and Caitlin's just 5'8". We're not exactly small people, right? So I'm not expecting our baby to be a small baby. Although your
baby's going to be 4'2".
Yeah, I'm gonna have to shop at the toddler aisle, right?
Yeah,
4'2", God forbid. All right, so I just want to bring that up as a topic, and how the babies grow, like how big they got, How heavy was your baby, John, when he was born?
Just over 7 pounds.
That's like the normal.
I think it was like
average.
Yeah, it was about average. Yeah, and then the thing you might not know is that they do drop weight right immediately after they're born.
Really?
Yeah. As soon as they're out in the world, they drop like almost like a pound or so.
I think they drop. There's a certain percentage, John. I think that they drop. My son and my daughter were both around the same weight, and probably around the same weight as yours. It was like 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 4 ounces, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was like 6 ounces, I think ours was.
And by the time you leave the hospital, even you'll drop a little bit of weight because now they're getting used to now being bottle fed or being fed, when they're just, they're getting fed, from the umbilical cord. So they grow like what, at their rate. But now they have to do something different, which is, unusual for them. And that changes the dynamic. And then they kind of lose weight. And then, but they want, that's why, Mike, when you get home, that they'll actually have you measure the kid later on because they want to make sure that they're back on track to gaining their weight again.
Sure.
So that's the biggest thing.
So what do you guys use to measure? And then Earl, I was curious if you could run through the weights of your kids, how different they were. But do you guys use like a tape measure, or is there a special thing that you should probably? You
bring them to the doctor. They'll measure.
Oh, okay.
Before you even leave the hospital, what they want to know is like what doctor you're bringing to, and they're like super adamant about that. So choose your doctor. So it's like they'll be like, well, you better have your doctor ready by the time I come back to you the next time. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, okay, I got my doctor. Like we were lucky enough to like live right around the corner from our doctor. And even so, like the first time around, it was like, oh, we're going to pick this one. And we the second time it was a breeze. But we finally got that, kind of got it settled because there was like a doctor that would come by and visit you and say, okay, she can come by, but you can't come by because you're going to do things like get shots while you're at the hospital too. And before you're actually at the hospital, you got to get shots, by the way, just to let you know. If you don't know.
DTaP is a big one.
Yeah,
wait, I need to get shots?
Yeah, you're going to have to get DTaP and a couple of other things.
What is DTaP?
TDAP, I think.
No, I think it's
TDAP.
Is it DTaP or I think it's
TDAP.
Yeah, it's DTaP, not TDAP. TDAP is
no, it's TDAP. T as in Tom. Tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis, and something else.
Diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis.
Yeah.
So it's DTaP.
Acronym is TDAP. TDAP.
No, it's D as in David. T as in Thomas.
It's not, man. Google it, Lou. Do me a favor. Google it.
I am. I'm Googling it right now.
It's TDAP.
He probably Googled TDAP and you Googled DTaP, right?
Right. I Googled DTaP and it comes up as DTaP. Let me see. Maybe you're right, John. Maybe it does come up as.
You're actually both right. You're arguing about the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
It sounds like
right.
that's why acronyms are.
Well, now I want to fight about it.
But now
okay,
Earl. So you have to.
You got to look it up the right way, Lou.
This is like the worst. This is the worst Yanny Laurel discussion I've ever heard in my life.
Oh my gosh!
No, you're nothing but I never liked you.
TDAP or DTaP? What do you guys see?
It's both. They're both the same thing. But you're gonna have to get the shot.
So that one's okay. So that one's basically so you can't pass that stuff on to your kid, right? What if you've had a tetanus shot recently? They don't care.
Still have to go. So the interesting thing about it is like this is something you're going to learn, and this is a conversation we should definitely have at some point in time. Like when older people come by, especially like grandma and grandpa, and they want to like nuzzle the kid, and they want to get really closer and like, no, stay the hell away, because the doctors will basically tell you keep the old people away, or keep people away from the kid in general. Like for the first week, you're going to not want anybody even home for that time. And reason why is because they're getting to a new environment. You're getting used to them. And also because they're susceptible for the first 30 days, even more so to outside influences. And the mom helps kind of get through that. But you want to limit as much exposure as much as possible, because people can bring in something. And that's, also little kids, children, you don't want them to touch the kid at all, right? Because they're just germ infested tanks.
They are. They're petri dishes. Yeah.
So you would just keep the kids away from you as much as you think, I want the kid to go swimming in the Hudson. No, you want that kid to be away from anybody who's potentially, got a whooping cough and stuff like that. Or, these older people, they don't know what they actually have. And, when kids have stuff, that you can bring it down to a kid who doesn't have any immune system at that point, it's a problem. So you'll learn that right away.
Okay. So the first week, you definitely want nobody. When's it safe to start introducing people, or start telling people it's okay to come over?
We always did 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yeah.
Was our compromise was 3 weeks.
Okay.
I think it's personal preference. They say at least 2-3 weeks. I think around us, we heard a lot of people doing like up to 6-7 weeks.
It's up to you, Mike. I mean, like if you find your kid, like what John's saying, if you find your son or daughter kind of like having a hard time adjusting, or you're having a hard time adjusting, your wife's having a hard time adjusting, or all three of you, then you give yourself a little bit of time, and you being the ringmaster and make sure that you kind of like create that zone of protection that we talked about.
So what about like the first day at the hospital if people do visit? I know everybody's different. Not everybody's going to be there for the first day, or maybe it's just you and your wife. But the first day when they're coming to visit, how do you kind of keep them away, or do the doctors make them put stuff on? I was
no.
Because when I went to go visit my first niece when she was born, she was in not an incubator, but it was like an open area. But
sure.
Yeah, but she would, they wanted to make sure they were monitoring her, and they didn't want anybody else to touch it except for the parents. But that the baby was in not in the nursery with the other babies. It was something else.
Okay.
But,
Yep.
The whole time we were at the hospital, no one else but us was allowed in the room. Us and medical personnel, when the baby was out. My family all had to were able to view through the viewing glass when they were in the nursery area, but my family didn't have any contact at all with the baby for 3 weeks.
Okay.
Tough crowd. I went to, both kids were delivered at Lenox Hill Hospital in New York City, and the thing that we did is, you'll find out this too, is you'll become a germaphobe in the beginning, and you're constantly washing your hands, and you're constantly putting, antibacterial lotion on your hands, because that's just because you're going to do that, and they'll indoctrinate you. And then everybody else who comes in and wants to touch the kid, that's the first thing you give them is like, go wash your hands and, take off your jacket and put the antibacterial lotion on after you come out, and don't smell, so because, yeah, no, that's a big thing, is he'll tell you, it's just like, when you're delivering this at Lenox Hill, it's like no colognes, no makeup, nothing that actually gives off a scent. So anybody comes in who's like heavily scented, you keep them away from the baby at that point in time, because it just like it messes with their senses.
Oh, I'm
probably a lot with the mom too.
Said that. I actually used to wear cologne, so I'm glad you said something like that.
Yeah, no cologne.
What's
They'll tell you. Don't worry about it. They'll tell you. They'll tell you. No colognes. Nothing that'll actually I want to say the word invasive, but it's just something that their senses are so heightened, it's going to be overpowering for them, and you don't want them to be overpowered.
Gotcha. So that's good to know. So other than the Tdap or the DTaP or whatever one you guys want to call it, but are there other shots that you need to get as a father?
Oh, I think that's about it.
That's it. I mean, they might recommend you get the flu shot, but that's
definitely the flu shot. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would recommend it too, but I mean, that's not a requirement, really.
Okay. Anything outside of that and the flu shot did you recommend? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Insurance wise.
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Earl.
I was gonna say, when you get older, chicken pox shingles is an issue if you've never had chicken pox, but beyond that, no.
There's a vaccine for that now, right?
There is, in fact, a vaccine. And it's required for them to get into school.
Comment on outside of vaccines and shots. Insurance-wise, and a lot of people forget this or don't even think of it, is that you have to keep giving your insurance a heads up about the birth of your kid. And generally, I think you have to, for most big insurance companies, you have to give them a notice that the kid was successfully delivered within 48 hours of the delivery.
Oh,
and a lot of people skip that step, and then they can't go to the doctor, or they got to pay out of pocket for a while until they get things sorted out.
That's actually a good point.
Yeah, it's one of those logistical things that people always overthink, and oftentimes people just don't do it, and then they're like, "Crap."
You'll sign a lot of paperwork while you're at
the
hospital.
I'm not too many.
I'm not too far out now, right? I didn't wait too long to do something like this. I don't even know if
No. You're not gonna. You're gonna after the kid is born. But the interesting thing about it is it's like you're gonna sign a bunch of paperwork while you're at the hospital, and you have to deliver it down to the office, because they're gonna end up having to then submit that information over for you. Like, you need a social security number, and that social security number actually has to go out to the insurance company. And the insurance company will not have that social security number in the beginning. They just will not, because it'll be an overlap. So you'll end up putting like 111, 111, 1111, just to have that something in there as a placeholder, and then you have to.
Yeah, I think you get 60 days to get them the social security number or something like that.
Wow.
There's Mike on Tuesday when we're back on. if you haven't done it, I'll show you where the change of life form is. The life change form is for the company. For you to fill that out to change, because it's not just your health insurance, it's everything else that's got to change too.
Sure. We actually have our insurance through Caitlin's company, so
okay.
I'm just going to bring this up to
And
her.
but like you know, she's going through all these doctor's appointments, and you would think that because she's going through all of them, they're going to have the heads up that she's going to have a baby, but it's actually not true.
Yeah, they don't
like you have to give them like official notice that you are having a baby, and then you like what Lou and Earl has been saying, there's things you gotta.
When do you need to do that, John? When do you need to give them the notice that you are having one?
You know, you can do it whenever. I think if I remember correctly, they wanted to do it within the third trimester.
You give it. So the cool thing about, depending upon who you're using, though, Mike, it's like insurance companies actually do have this whole hand-holding process. So depending upon your insurance company, like our insurance company sent us out a book, like what to expect when you're expecting. If you don't have that book already, you can grab it, and
So
that's
all right. I think this is a good topic to continue next week too. So next week we'll continue the topic of paperwork, Talkin Dads. So that's somewhere I can help with. You know, that's something else I can do as a dad to help support Caitlin. So next week we'll bring out more paperwork, Social Security number. I'm gonna have those questions too. I know. Yeah, I think that'll be good for next week. Once again, everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Talkin Dads podcast. Feel free to follow us on Twitter at Talkin Dads. Visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/Talkin Dads. Visit our website, talkindads.com. We're on Instagram as well, Talkin Dads. Also, we have our You Suggested page. So go to yousuggested.com and search for Talkin Dads. Thanks again for listening. I'm Mike.
I'm Lou Corso.
You got John here.
And this is Earl. As they say in Minnesota, you betcha.
It's pretty good.
I was her bitch for the day.
Okay.
I'm your bitch for the day.